What's good? It's Colleen Witt, and Eating While Broke is back for Season 3. Brought to you by the Black Effect Podcast Network and iHeartRadio. We're serving up some real stories and life lessons from people like Van Lathan, DC Young Fly, Bone Thugs and Harmony, and many more. They're sharing the dishes that got them through their struggles and the wisdom they gained along the way. We're cooking up something special, so tune in every Thursday. Listen to Eating While Broke on the Black Effect Podcast Network, iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Presented by State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
You ever get that feeling like the concrete jungle's closing in? You crave wide open spaces, the chance to chase your own dinner, or just breathe clean air. Well, listen up. There's a whole world out there waiting, and finding your piece of it just got easier. Head over to Land.com. They've got ranches, forests, mountains, you name it. Search by acreage, price, location. They've got it all. No matter what kind of wild dream you're chasing, Land.com can help you find the ground to make it a reality. So quit dreaming. Head over to Land.com, find your open space, and get out there.
It's time for a Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it, because you did.
On Giants.com.
You know what I saw? New York Giant Prime.
And the Giants mobile app.
17-14 is the final. One touchdown, we are world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
Welcome to Tuesday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. So glad you could join us for the next hour. I'm Paul Dottino. He's two-time Super Bowl champion Jonathan Casillas, and we're here to talk Giants football. OTA number 8 was this morning. We'll go over a quick recap of that and then ask you today's question, which John and Matt already talked about yesterday, and maybe there's more of you who want to chime in on ranking the Giants' positional groups. 10 positional groups for the team on offense: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, offensive line; on defense, edge, defensive tackle, linebacker, cornerback, and safety. And we'll offer our opinions as to how the Giants rank in each of their position groups for the 2024 season. In the meantime, our phone number is 201-939-4513. 201-939-4513. You could always get us on Twitter at hashtag Giants Chat. He's at JCasillas52,
yes,
right?
Sir. Mm-hmm.
And I am at Giants WFAN. And you can always find an archive of this show and our entire podcast network on the Giants mobile app, podcast platforms everywhere, and at giants.com/podcasts. Now, just a couple of notes off of today's OTA, because, again, I know you folks didn't have the opportunity to read anything in the media. It was closed to the general media today. John and I have already put up, I don't know, Pearson, is it already up on the board? The OTA review, has that been posted?
Schmelk should be posting it on Twitter any minute now.
Okay, so that'll be going up any time. But just to give you a couple of previews about that, 7-on-7, Daniel Jones had a sweet 40-plus yard touchdown pass on a bomb to Isaiah Hodgins, which went on a post. Gorgeous throw. Hodgins settled under it and went all the way for the score. Deontay Banks had a really nice pass defense also in a 7-on-7 as he closed in and deflected a pass away. Banks is such a fun-loving guy.
Yeah.
And I know you're still doing rankings here, Jonathan, but let me just interrupt and ask you about this. Deontay Banks is like a 10-year-old in a candy store. He just loves to play football. He's always got a smile on his face. He's always got a hop in his step. And every time he's around the ball on the practice field, he's giddy. I mean, that's really the word I use. He's giddy.
Yeah.
This dude just absolutely is having a blast. It's like a 10-year-old, not just at a candy store, a 10-year-old at a birthday party.
Yeah.
He's having a ball.
He's competitive. He's real competitive, man. The softball game a few weeks ago, like, you saw it in him. Like, you saw, he was like, I'm not about to let these old dudes beat me. And I'm sitting there like, I'm gonna show you a little bit, young boy. Like, I'm not as nimble as I used to be, but you could see it in his eyes. You could see it how he carries himself. Like, he knows he's really good, and he plays like that. That says something when you're at that position in this league, because you're gonna go against the greatest athletes in the world at that wide receiver position.
Now, he went through some rookie growing pains like all rookies do.
Mm-hmm.
All right, there was some ups and downs in there, but there's no question about his physical tools and his ability.
Absolutely.
Let me just ask you this. As a player who's going through these spring OTAs, and we know not every player is anxious or eager to do so, but as a player, and maybe specifically as a veteran, when you see a young fella like that, who's early in his journey, first year, in this case, a second-year player, getting all foaming at the mouth and enthusiastic about OTAs, what is your reaction to that? Does it give you a little lift? Are you kind of goofing on him and saying, "Hey, kid, wait till you play in this league 8 years because you're not going to be that way 8 years from now"?
No,
how do you view it?
Well, it all depends, like for me, I loved when people were themselves.
Oh, he's himself.
When they came in the building and they were themselves, whatever that was. I played with some very interesting characters, Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie and Jack Rabbit. Some people might call, they doing a little too much. They're themselves. That's who they are. And I love when people feel comfortable to be themselves. Mm-hmm. And I love that type of energy. Like me, I'm a Gemini. I have my up days, I have my down days. Some days I have a lot of energy. Some days I'm like, nobody talk to me. That's how I am. But I love people that are themselves. And that's, for me, don't, try to walk on eggshells or like be yourself. Be yourself, your genuine self. And hopefully you're a good person, so you don't piss people off and stuff like that.
It helps if you can play.
And that matters for sure. But be yourself. Be enthusiastic about coming to work. Have fun at work because at the end of the day, it is a job, but it's also a game. It's a game that we played as kids. So if you can be yourself and have fun at your job, I think he uplifts other guys that may not be having a great day. We're all human beings.
Well,
still.
that's why I'm asking
Everybody has good days. Everybody has bad days.
To some guys, this is very mundane.
Yeah, right. True. But even those guys, right, they still have their good days and bad days. Mm-hmm. So maybe there's a couple of guys, maybe, they didn't get that good sleep. They, argue with their wife or their kid said something to them in the morning. And all of a sudden you get this live ball of energy coming in. He could uplift your spirit.
Okay.
I think that does a lot to the locker room. Like I said, DRC and Jack Rabbit, like when you were having a bad day, DRC had his Spider-Man mask or his Power Ranger mask on or something.
It's clean.
Like, yeah, like just doing weird stuff, but like you made you like smile and have a good time, man. And that's what Banks is. He's a fire starter. He's a firecracker. I like
that's
it.
Good. Well, that's why I wanted your perspective
I
on
like
this.
it a lot.
All right, as far as 11 on 11s go, we saw some nice catches and some nice open area speed from Theo Johnson once again, who just continues to impress every single time he hits the practice field. He has soft hands, and he just looks a lot quicker live than he did on tape. Asante had a nice catch, a diving stab from Rourke, the CFL quarterback who's here as the number 4 right now. What else did I see? I had a couple other items on 11 on 11. Banks had a couple of passes defensed. I've already mentioned him in 7 on 7s. Ford Wheaton made a nice throw, a nice adjustment on an underthrown ball to make a really sweet grab. And we talked about him, or at least I have, a number of times during the spring. I don't think people should sleep on him. He's coming off of that ACL, and I don't think people should sleep on him. I think there's a chance that Ford Wheaton could really battle and compete for a potential spot in the wide receiver room. Let's see, what else did I notate? Allen Robinson had a really nice catch from Locke where he had a twist behind him and reach back for a stab. Drew Locke, by the way, had a really nice day. We saw a couple of practices ago, the offense really struggled and none of the quarterbacks were really on target. But Locke and DeVito threw the ball much, much better today. Locke in particular had a slew of completions in the 11 on 11s. Let's see what else. Dennis Houston had a touchdown grab on a bomb from Rourke, by the way, which was rather interesting. Houston also made another catch, a diving stab from Locke, which was over the middle. Darnay Holmes, who had been beaten by Dennis Houston on a touchdown pass, then came back on the next play and made a really nice pass defense. So those were some of the highlights from the 7 on 7s and 11 on 11s today that we saw at practice. I will say this. I mentioned it to Jonathan after practice was over because we were out there on the field, and it's noticeable how many collections of small groups of players are staying after everybody goes inside. Coaches got to go inside because they can't be out. There's a certain time limit where you're allowed to be on the field with the players. So that's it. They're done. And yet, what do we see? We see some players individually on their own going into their position groups and having chats. Sometimes it could be as simple as Daniel Jones throwing extra passes to guys like Neighbors or Slayton. Or it could be, in this case, the one that you pointed out to me right away, and I've seen this constantly, Jermaine Illuminor constantly chatting up the other offensive linemen after practice, getting a little collection of maybe 3 or 4 guys together and chatting them up. This is significant.
Yeah, that's huge. The teams I've played on that had a lot of success, you hung out with the other players. Like the guys hung out with each other. They liked each other. They loved each other. We cared about each other. We spent time with each other. And you know what I noticed too, I don't know how far you can see, but on the opposite side of the field, there was like 4 or 5 old linemen walking around the entire outside of the fields. Like those things right there, they go so far.
The thing that's interesting, I want you to finish it a second. Again, it's positional groupings are staying together. That's the whole point of this. It's not just teammates. It's guys within their positional groupings breaking off into small sections and doing whatever it is. It could be as simple as a walk.
Yeah.
But they're hanging out after OTAs. And there are a lot of guys who can't wait for OTA to be over so they can get out.
Yep. But
not here.
This is the culture that's been established here that they're trying to grow, because first year they come in, they establish culture, I feel like right away, move some pieces around, and ever since Joe Shane and Dayball took over, I feel like they've been prioritizing high-character guys that, not saying that they aren't, legit athletes or they're not top competitors, but they have to check that character box. They have to check that, is he a good dude? Is he a guy that's going to fit in this locker room? And you see that, man. I think the guys that are coming in, that are playing for the New York Giants, the guys that they're bringing in, they're high-performance guys, but they're high-character guys as well. And when you want to go ahead and, rewrite the narrative from the New York Giants over the last, 10 years, 12 years, when you want to rewrite that narrative, you got to bring in guys that are built to play, but also built to learn and built to be with other guys to push forward this narrative, push forward this culture and change the narrative of the New York Giants.
The important part about that staying after stuff is you got to want to do it. A player's got to want to do that on his own. That's not coming from instruction. That's not coming, from the coach kind of winking at him and saying, hey, I think you ought to try to do something extra. That's not the way it works. Okay, it doesn't go that way. Players just got to, on their own, collectively decide that they want to spend a little extra time to do something, and that's good.
And it comes from usually the leaders, the guys that's been around for a while.
And Illuminor just got here. How great is that?
Yep.
We talked about this in the lunchroom. Andrew Thomas leads by example. His work ethic and his never-ending desire and intensity and effort on the field. Jermaine Illuminor is vocal.
Yep. He embodies it, for sure. He's that type of guy. And from the interviews I've seen from him, from what I've heard from, other people conversing about him, speaking about him, and then seeing him out there today, he looked like he was definitely the coach, coaching up the younger guys, and that is huge. Like, and I got to reflect on, my days because that's what I know. Of course, I got to compare what they're seeing now, what they're doing now to what I did. And for me, like, I was always like that. Like when I first got to the league and I was playing for New Orleans, I was young, undrafted, and I started playing more, and some people didn't like that. And some people stopped helping me out, stopped telling me stuff, like he used to help me out a lot. I'm not saying no names, but he used to help me out.
Now all of a sudden you're a little too good.
And now he's not even speaking to me no more.
Yeah.
I made sure I never did that.
Right.
I made sure I never did that. When I got to New York, I couldn't wait to help guys out. I couldn't wait to say, hey, man, like, you got to do this instead of that, or, stay at the practice. To be fair,
you already had 2 rings.
And
you were in the league a while, too.
Right, I was, yeah.
So to be fair.
Yeah. But
not that you're not a great guy.
But I also learned that, too.
Right.
Like, I learned, like, the older guys taking me under their wing, And then I also saw it from when the guy that was like, oh, no, I'm not giving you nothing no more. I seen that too. And that doesn't help anybody out.
No.
That doesn't help anybody out. You're not going to not play because you give me information.
Right.
You're either going to play or not play depending on what you do, not what I do.
That's right.
You know, so all in all, like when you're on a team, when you sharing information, you have knowledge, it's only helping the team. It's competitive, but you want to help the team out. That's a great teammate. And the Giants want great players, but more importantly, they want great teammates. So when it comes down to January and you got to rely on somebody next to you, you want to look your guy in the eyes and look at I got your back, bro. I'm there for you. Remember in August?
High tide raises all boats.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
201-939-4513. We were going to do some positional rankings, but I see the lines are just absolutely flooded. So why don't we quickly go to a few phone calls first, and then we'll get back to some other topics. We will start with James in Georgia. You're first on the program today. Hello. Thanks for calling.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Good to talk to you.
What's up, John? I'm glad actually off work right this second, so I got a couple minutes today. Glad you're on, Jonathan, because I got two things. I need some advice, and I want another one of these anecdotes that you're telling, because you always give us gems when you come on.
Okay.
So I called last time, and I told the guys I got Florida State football camp coming up with my son tomorrow. He actually just stepped out the car. And we have Evan Neal's camp on Saturday coming up. So I was going to ask you, Jonathan, for some advice, because he plays on the line as a pass rusher. He's still in high school. Is there any advice as far as bull rush technique or like a spin move? Because I want him to work on getting more tricks in his bag. And then I'll ask you the next one.
Can I just say first up, pass rusher, that's a nicely paid position.
Oh,
Good job.
Yeah,
Good job.
I always tell people that. You big guys that say, yo, you want to rush that passer. For sure. Whatever your son, like whatever he's great at, like if he's a speed rusher, a bull rusher, whatever that is, everybody has like a natural thing that they're gifted at. Like I had my athleticism that I could fall back on. My speed was like my number one thing, my number one advantage that I could use against mostly anybody. So you figure out what he does very, very well. And it might be, going around the corner, bending, turning the edge. Master that, right? But then have your moves off of that, right? Like Freeney. Freeney was a great spinner. He was a great spinner. He would sack guys because they thought the spin was coming. So you get really good at what you're really good at, and then you have counter moves off of that, right? That's like boxing. Somebody who's a great jabber, he ain't knocking nobody out with no jab.
No.
But you're setting something else up. So like, you got speed, but they know you got speed. So they're going to be setting back for you. They know what you do well. What you need to do is have a counter off what you do very well. So if he's a speed guy, have maybe an up and under or speed to power, whatever it is. You work your stuff. You put that out there first. When I played and I ran down on kickoff, my first thing was give them speed and be physical with them. I'm talking about when I run down the field, I'm going to hit that guy. So now he's like, all right, this guy's going to hit me every time he comes down. No, I'm not. That's just what I want you to think.
Right.
So it's like what you do very well. I was a fast, violent guy on special teams, and I did that, but then I also had moves off of that. So it's like, yes, he might be a speed guy, but he needs to speed to power or speed to, turn the edge or up and under, whatever it is. But develop that first move or whatever that is, what he does very well, and then have counters off of what he does very well.
That's good advice. So you have like a technique advice, like make sure you get your because we had Cynthia Freeland on yesterday. You don't have any advice like make sure you get your shoulder below your waist or something crazy like that?
It's all about pad level and your hands. So if you can be lower than the guy, but using your hands, creating that separation. Some people when they get to the target, their hands are like this. You can't do that. you need to have your hands about right here so you can press and lock out. And of course, there's twist, turn, push, pull. I just don't know your son's technique. I don't know if he has long arms. I don't know none of that information. I don't know if he's fast, if he's short, you know what I mean? So for me, it's like definitely keeping the leverage aspect of it, being lower than who you're going against, and then being able to use your hands at all times, whether you're smacking, whether you're pushing, whether you're twisting, whether you're smacking and ripping, like whatever it is, use your hands. You got to have great hands and great body position, I think, to be a pass rusher in the league nowadays.
James, I would add one thing as someone who did not play but has studied this game a long time. If you've got a better get-off at the snap than the guy who's opposite the line of scrimmage from you, you've already won part of the battle.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So really work on the get-off. I would say that's the easiest thing to do, because if you can be really good at the get-off on the snap, that cat-like quickness that OCU Manura had, okay, already you have an advantage in your one-on-one matchup before you even get to the moves that Jonathan's talking about, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. That's it.
So the other stuff I want, real quick, because I know you said you got a whole bunch of callers. I called the other day about New York starving for a championship. The Rangers, they put up a good fight, let that one go. I know the Giants. What do you think the Giants gotta really do to compete? I know championships can be fluky. And the last anecdote I'm looking for. I know you're always talking about the good guys or you're talking about the guys on defense. Who have you seen outside of Illumador that'll break the offensive down, like the Odell Beckham that was always dancing and things like that? Because John was saying the other day that he doesn't really see that guy on offense like you see a few of them on defense, like Spider and Banks, you know what I mean? So I'll take the rest off the air, guys.
James, best of luck to your son. Enjoy. Thanks for the call. 201-939-4513. In terms of the question about who's that spark plug or who's that colorful character on this offense, right now I don't know that there is one.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't. Right now, we know on defense, Banks is very animated and colorful. Okereke is a great leader and very energized and very animated. Dexter Lawrence is certainly colorful and animated. I don't see one right now. Thibodeau's got some emotion in him too that he shows on the field. And I'm sure Spider-Man, like you said, Brian Burns will too. By the way, we did figure out that Tibbs told Steve Serby of the Post he wants to be Black Panther. So those are the two.
Spider-Man and Black Panther.
Those are the Marvel bookends.
I like it.
Spidey and Black Panther.
I like it.
On offense, I don't see anybody on offense who shows that.
I don't think so, but I think it will emerge from the wide receiver room.
Probably.
I think one of those guys, and my bet it's on either Neighbors or Wandale. I just feel like, once you get comfortable in this league at that position and you really start showing a true character, not all of them are divas, but most of them are. Most of them know how to talk that talk. They know how to run their mouth. The good stuff, though, the good talking, which will keep guys going, keep them in the game. 13 was special here. He was a little crazy.
Yeah.
But that helped his game. He played crazy. Like, he was a crazy dude.
See, just in the Tom Coughlin era, Brandon Jacobs was that guy on offense.
Yeah, I could tell.
He let you know that every time he was on the field, he was a keg of dynamite ready to explode.
Absolutely.
And, man, did he get his guys fired up.
Absolutely.
201-939-4513. Phone calls are going crazy here, so I'm just going to keep rolling with them. Tim from Charleston, you're on line 3 on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello.
How you doing, Paul? JC, good to talk to you guys again.
You too.
So I just got a couple of quick points and a really quick story. First thing I wanted to say is that I think the key to the Giants' overall season, aside obviously from injuries, because that's something that you have little control over, is going to be their ability to stop the run. Because I feel like with our pass rushers, if they could limit teams on first down and put them into more passing situations between our pass rushers and our very young secondary, I think, we've got some playmakers back there, I think, who are going to come on this year. But if obviously we know, if you give the quarterback too much time, he can pick them apart. But the key to that is getting them in, limiting those first down runs. And so that's the one thing that I would say going into the season that I feel I've got to see. I feel like we shored up a lot of areas. I mean, obviously we got Dex in the middle, but until I see it, it's hard for me to believe. So that's number one. You want to comment first, or you want me to go through all my points?
You want to go, or should I go?
Go ahead.
All right, Tim, I'll say this. It's always been my opinion that while the game is won in the trenches, Football 101 tells you that, the offensive line and their ability to control the flow, the narrative, and the tempo of the game is even more important than the defensive line. Because the offensive line, if they go and pound somebody and they show that we're going to impose our will on this game, and if we want to go on a 9-minute drive and score a touchdown, we can do it. If we want to control it and go on a 4-play drive and score a touchdown because we can hold up for our quarterback, we can do it. See, that's something the defensive line can't do. They can't control the narrative and the clock. The offensive line can control that. And they can control the game situations based on where the clock is and how the score is. The O-line has the ability to then control the tempo and the narrative. D-line cannot do that. So I would say to you, I would go the other way. I would say if the Giants' offensive line can be functional and allow this offense to do whatever it is they have to do, regardless of the score, the time, and the flow of the game, that to me is priority number one. Stopping the run would be priority number two. I cannot make that number one.
I mean, I agree with you, Paul, 100%, honestly. You know, the offensive line is the key. However, I feel that in the off-season, I have seen enough improvements, or hopeful, at least on paper.
There you go, Tim. That's the problem. It's on paper. It's on paper. That's the problem. I need to see it.
No, exactly. We need to see it, but I think at least we have some names there. We have Illuminor. We have John Runyon.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right, Runyon?
Yep.
Yeah. And I think we've got some we got a couple of veterans in depth and a couple of younger guys in depth. And I think, if a catastrophe with all the injuries like last year happens, all bets are up. But the only reason that I make stopping the run, because I haven't seen anything that tells me that we've improved our personnel significantly there, obviously with the exception of Burns and being able to close that edge, and I just feel like if we can limit them on first down and put them in more passing situations, it leads to more opportunities for turnovers, more opportunities to get to the quarterback. And while I do agree with you, Paul, O-line's always most important, the thing is the defense still has to. Our offense should get better this year with the weapons and the better offensive line, and if DJ stays healthy. But they're not going to be rolling 27 to 30 points a game. I don't think any of us expect that. So the defense still has to keep the other team down.
See, Tim, that's where your point right there. I don't want to interrupt, but here's what you just said. What you just said, in a way, just doubled down on the offensive line. Because if you don't think the Giants are going to score 27 to 30 points a game, then what you need are long, sustained drives to keep the other team off the field. So that if you do shorten the game and score fewer points, if you do it on long, sustained drives, well, now you're taking pressure off your defense and you're forcing the other team to make the most of their few possessions or few minutes that they have the ball, and they're going to want to throw the ball more.
Yeah.
Chances are they'll abandon the run. So you've just doubled and tripled down on the point that the offensive line is even more important.
The offensive line for any team in the league to have some success has to play solid football. You have to play solid football. You don't have to be dominant, but you have to play solid football. You can't lead the league in sacks. You can't do that. You can't let people run free. You have to be able to establish run game. You don't have to have a great run game, but you have to be able to establish run game. But the number one thing, you got to be able to protect your quarterback. You have to be able to do that, right? But I'm a defensive guy, and I know what the Giants are, and I know what their last two Super Bowls look like, and I know who they won them against. And it wasn't because the offensive line was great. It was because their defense was dominant.
That is true.
The reason why Patrick Mahomes lost to Tampa Bay wasn't because of Tom Brady, because their defense was all over Patrick Mahomes. The defense was dominant. The Giants, the way the Giants have success, the last really good season, 2 years, the last 2 seasons that were good after the Super Bowl was 2022, and also it was 2016. Dominant defense in 2016 and 2022, right? Not great offense, but really solid run game, protected the quarterback, was efficient with the quarterback.
Functional offensive line.
And very good on defense on third downs and in the red zone. Very good. Maybe not dominant, but very, very, very good. The Giants, that recipe is like culturally built into this place.
2 years ago, the Giants were among the worst teams against the run, though.
Right, 2 years ago.
Yeah,
right?
when they made the playoffs.
Yeah. Are we still good? 'Cause he's
their
going in now.
playoff
Okay.
season, the Giants were terrible against the run in 2022.
Right, but
situationally, they were good, and offensively, they were able to function because the line was good enough.
Yes. But I think what the Giants' success, and this is me historically looking at
It's
this
usually
franchise.
pass rush more than anything.
It is, and now how the teams are now, it's all about the offense. It's all about getting that ball out there to those talented wide receivers, protecting the quarterback, The Giants are built right now, and the way this team is structured is to have a dominant defense. And I don't know if the Giants can have success without the defense being dominant this year. I don't think they can do that.
Here's the problem, Tim, as I say all the time, the National Football League, this game is a spider web. Okay? That's just the bottom line. It's a spider web.
I thought you were going to say it's an onion.
Well, peel back. I talk about that all the time too, peeling back the layers of the onion. But it's also a spider web, and I've used this analogy about 5 trillion times too. Every strand is connected. That's why it's the greatest game in God's creation, because every strand is connected. There's no simplistic answer to this stuff. There really isn't.
No, you're right, and I think we agree. It's kind of 1A, 1B. It's just a question of where I just
the strands are attached, Tim. That's the bottom line.
I'll just skip my other question because we've gone a little long already, and just tell you this quick anecdote. In 2018, I live in Charleston now, so I got tickets to the Giants-Panthers game. That's the one where, of course, Gano beat us on the 63-yard.
I remember it very well.
This time.
Indeed.
And that's also the game where Odell Beckham threw the touchdown pass, which was incredible as well. And I was right down at that corner of the end, right down to that, like I was on the 10-yard line or 15-yard line for those. But before the game, I signed up for the, if I'm allowed to say it, Big Blue Travel, their pregame tailgate. And it's great. I have on my phone, because you mentioned Brandon Jacobs. That made me think it, because Brandon Jacobs was there, Leonard Marshall was there. Later, Plaxico came, but I have video on my phone of Brandon Jacobs and Leonard Marshall playing cornhole together. I thought you might get a chuckle out of that.
That is unique. I feel bad for the beanbags because Leonard Marshall could probably smash them with his grip. Tim, have a great day, man. Thanks for calling. 201-939-4513. Again, the calls are popping in like crazy, so we'll just go right to line 1. And Donnie from Queens, you're next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello.
Hey, Paul. Hey, John. How you guys doing?
Hi.
All right.
I didn't get a chance to call last week, so if I may, I wanted to give my breakout player.
Sure.
Haven't heard him talked about. Azeez Ojulari, and I'll give you my reasoning. His first year, I think he had like 8.5 sacks. He was a productive, promising young player. And even in that second season, he didn't play a lot. But the per-game production was there. It was something like 5 sacks in 7 games. Last year was a rough season. I'm not quite sure what happened. But the talent is there. And this is also a guy that where maybe less is more for him, less snaps. He can stay on the field, be that speed rusher, maybe coming in late in games and kind of close games off for them. And a major factor in that young man's life, it's a career year. And this guy knows he needs to perform. So
you mean a contract season is what you mean?
Yes, it's a contract year for him.
Understood.
He has to produce, and a good year for him, could mean a $10+ million a year contract. What is he, 25, 26 years old? So that's obviously life-changing for him. Kind of reminds me of Marcus Golden in a way. Maybe that type of career path for him where he's a situational pass rusher Who can get you 8 to 10 sacks, give or take, depending on the year.
You know what's interesting to me with your comment is that I think we would both agree, Jonathan, in a perfect world, Burns and Thibodeau will probably play 80% of the snaps because they're going to play all 3 downs. Yep. So unless Ojulari is worked in to a specific pass rush package where he gets some steady snaps in a certain type of situation, if those guys are able to stay on the field, I don't know how much opportunity he will get to put up big numbers.
Oh, no. Ojulari is definitely going to get an opportunity, for sure. I think
hope so.
What he's saying, too.
But I hope it's in the packages, not as an injury replacement.
I agree with what he's saying. I think less could be more for him.
Could be.
I think what we know about Ojulari, and I agree with you with last year being the anomaly of when he was healthy, he was very productive. Last year was the first time he didn't really produce as much.
First time in 3 years, his efficiency was down.
So I think he'll have a bounce back year, and he won't be playing as much. Hopefully he can stay healthy because that was the number one thing for him. Mm-hmm. The kid couldn't stay healthy, but them bringing in Burns, it was I know it had to be a big wake-up call to him. Like, I got to tighten my stuff up. When I'm out there, I got to play very well at a very high level. And I've seen guys flourish taking that kind of secondary role, but coming in as a premier pass rusher on third downs and passing situations. And all those guys are going to be on the field at one time.
Well, Isaiah Simmons is also going to be on the field quite a bit too.
We're going to see with all of these athletes that they have to be able to rush the passer, because Isaiah Simmons, he's that slash guy. He can play off-the-ball linebacker. He's a great on-the-ball edge rusher.
Great cover guy.
He can play in space. He's a slash guy. So it'd be really good to see how they use Ojulari, Simmons, and all of those guys when it comes to rushing guys. I think Ojulari will have his best season ever because of Burns.
All right, so you got a vote here, Donnie.
If I could just add to it real quick, if Thibodeau and Burns are playing 80% of the snaps, well, he could eat those 20% from those other guys, and it doesn't always have to be third down. There's a lot of throwing in the NFL on 2nd and 7.
There's a lot of throwing, bro.
I would think the hope would be that he could sub for either guy so that when those guys are out, that could be his role. Now, whether or not that's enough to make a difference, I don't know the answer. I will say something else, Donnie, and we've talked about this on the program before. We don't know the scheme that Coach Bowen is going to use here, okay? Yeah. But it seems to me, and again, I'm using the numbers by down linemen. I'm not talking about numbers up front. I'm talking about down linemen. This guy basically runs a 2-4-5. 2 down linemen with their hand in the dirt, with 2 stand-up linebackers on the edge, 2 linebackers between the tackles, and then 5 DBs. Mm-hmm. So, in effect, it's a 2-4-5 with the 2 understanding that it's 2 down, but it's really a 4-man front.
Or a 4-2-5, whatever.
You could call it a 4-2-5 if you want to as well. Yeah. Usually, in the old days, the numbers had to do with the guy in the dirt.
The down, yep. Mm-hmm.
That's the way we used to do it. Now, today, the game is so morphed. If people want to say 4-2-5, that's perfectly fine too. I'll understand what that means. So the point being, now, if you're Ojulari and you are an edge rusher, I don't know exactly where he fits in that standard configuration unless he's just subbing for somebody. Or how about this? And I've talked about this before too. What if on obvious passing situations, 3rd and long, Dexter Lawrence is the only guy down as the nose tackle, and then you stand up 3 or 4 linebackers on the line of scrimmage? How about that?
Yeah, that can happen. But what coaches, really good coaches, the great coaches.
Thanks for taking my call, guys.
No doubt.
Thank you, Dennis. Donnie, appreciate it.
Really great coaches, what they do is they don't impose their schemes on the players. They do, but
they know how to use guys.
What he's going to see, Bowen, when he watches every single game from last year, he's going to see that when Dexter Lawrence lines up over the center, he wins a lot.
Dexter Lawrence is going to be the
Dexter
nose tackle.
Lawrence is going to be lined up over the center.
Yeah, that's not happening. He's not moving.
When you have to do things because you have a person that's special like that can create the opportunities that he can create, that's when you start tweaking your defense to match the players, right? So you have 3 very good pass rushers that the Giants have. I'm not even including Simmons in that. Okay. I'm just including the 3 that we've been talking about. You want all 3 of those guys on the field at the same time with your best player, Dexter Lawrence. When it comes to passing situations, watch how that combination Ojulari, Thibodeau, Burns, Dexter Lawrence, all 4 of those guys on the field at the same time in passing situations, that's dangerous. That's dangerous. They got to learn how to play with each other.
No doubt.
But then you look on the back end, you got, I think, one of the better middle linebackers, off-the-ball middle linebackers in the league, in Bobby Okereke, playing behind you, covering up all of that's happening in front of you, because I'm not telling those guys to do anything. Just go create havoc. Just go create havoc, and I'll make you right as a linebacker. I'm looking forward to seeing that play out for the Giants.
201-939-4513 is our phone number. Lines are still going crazy. This is unbelievable. Folks, I got to get a couple of these spots in, and I apologize, but we do need the promotional announcements. Giants Huddle Podcast has Giants front office staff, past and present, coaches, players. They talk about all these great things involving the team and the league. They're long-form interviews, and they can be found on your favorite podcast platform. The Giants Huddle is the name of that program. Giants season ticket memberships are available. You can stay connected to the club all year round. To learn more about all exclusive member benefits, visit Giants.com/tickets. Limited inventory is available, and Giants TV is the official connected TV streaming app. Original video content. It is available free to Big Blue fans on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and the Giants mobile app. 201-939-4513. And it looks like we still got more phone calls. Pearson, I don't know if we're going to get to that question of the day.
Why don't you guys get to it, or do one more call, and then we can do the exercise.
All right. Joseph from Oregon, you are next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Hi.
What's up?
That's cool. I just called 5 seconds ago, so I'm really excited.
And the lines are literally, the lines are like the fireworks on the 4th of July. You guys are really dialing up the phone like crazy today.
I called 12 times. It was just ringing.
It's going nuts. Pearson has only got one set of headphones here, and he's trying to answer all these calls at once. It's really hard.
Hotline bling.
Go ahead.
It's very admirable.
What's going on, Joseph?
I kind of wanted to get your guys' opinion on Theo Johnson and Daniel Bellinger kind of emerging as tight ends and what they can bring to the table.
Well, we've talked about Bellinger for a couple of years now, and I thought his rookie season he showed an awful lot, and then last year was a bit inconsistent. I'm sure the Giants were hoping that his line would continuously go straight up, but it took a little bit of a dip last year. I would like to see him bounce back and have a really good third season in the league. We know he's a really good blocker when things are right. He's been banged up a bit as well, and we think he can be an asset in the passing game. Theo Johnson, how many times have we said this since the Combine? He's a tremendous athlete. That goes without saying. The scientific evidence proves that. And he should be a much more valuable weapon in the passing game than he was at Penn State, because they didn't really use him in that fashion. And he's showing us here in the spring that the athleticism scores are legit. They're absolutely legit. He's fast. He's very pliable. He catches everything that's in his box, and he's got a big catching box, too, a catching radius. I'm really excited about him. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I think as of right now, you got to, of course, we're not looking at the guy who's contemplating. We're looking at the guys who's actually here.
The guys who are here. That's all we can talk about.
I had a lot of hope for Bellinger last year. Like you said, a little bit of a step back. I think that gets thrown in as the offense was not good last year. The entire offense.
No question.
You can't pick a player on the Giants that said, oh, he had a good year on offense.
No.
Nobody.
No.
So I'm going to throw that in there with the whole offense being kind of out of whack the whole year with the injuries and, 3 quarterbacks playing. Like, there's a lot of stuff that happened. I think he will have a bounce-back season, and I think he will be as good in the passing game as the running game, but I don't think he's going to be a primary guy like a Waller. I don't think that will ever be him. I think he's going to be a solid blocking, but a solid do-it-all type of tight end, but not like an elite. Darren Waller was an elite pass catcher at the tight end position.
He was.
In 2020, was it 21?
2 years, he had 1,000 yards
right,
receiving.
100 catches in at least one of those years.
That's legit.
That's elite status. I don't think Bellinger would be that type of guy, but he doesn't have to be. He doesn't have to be. But he has to be somebody who's productive when he has his hand in the ground, and whenever they ask him to catch the ball, you got to catch the ball. That's it. I'm not looking for him to have 800 receiving yards and 10 touchdowns. I'm not looking for none of that. Really good blocking at the point and being able to utilize him in 11 personnel, 10 personnel, whatever the personnel is that requires a tight end and him being outside, flexed, or in the backfield. I need him to be able to do all of that, and the Giants need him to be able to do all of that stuff.
Joseph, I think we're all curious about Theo Johnson and how quickly is his star going to rise. You just don't know as a rookie.
Might take some time, though.
He's going to have to go through some growing pains.
Might take some time.
But I will tell you this, I don't want to put a ceiling on that kid right now. I just don't, because I'm really excited about what I'm seeing. Now, I will mention this to you, Joseph, before we let you go real quick. The Darren Waller situation, and I know a lot of people have written about, well, if Darren Waller were to retire or, mutually announce he's going to leave and the Giants cut him, the Giants stand to get $11 million back on the salary cap now that we're post-June 1st, and they'd have $2.5 million of dead money this year and then the next 2 years in each of those seasons, according to the over-the-caps numbers that they have access to the contracts and stuff, or at least unofficial access. But here's the other part about the Waller thing that I don't think people are really thinking about. The Giants, just because they would get $11 million in cash back on the cap, that doesn't mean they necessarily have to sign a free agent. Now, they could, but the other avenue they could do is like what they did last year when they made the trade for Isaiah Simmons and traded a 7th-round draft choice to get a veteran because you have to absorb the contract. So you don't necessarily have to look at the free agents who would be on the street and say, well, maybe the Giants would have enough money to buy one of those guys. They might be able to go to another team and say, do you have a veteran cornerback who's making $6 or $7 million? Or do you have a big, powerful fullback, and maybe not a fullback, but just a big, power, short yardage back who's making X number of dollars? You know what? We now have room to absorb that contract. We've got a 6th-round draft pick to trade you. So I think the writers have totally missed the boat on that. The cap money that they might find if Waller should go away doesn't have to be free agent money. It could wind up kind of initiating a trade because then you absorb that guy's contract, and now all of a sudden the Giants would have room to do something like that. It opens up a whole new world of possibilities in terms of who could they acquire.
Yep, and I like Joe Shane with that option. I like Joe Shane with that option.
So do I, because he's been really good in the last several years about making those kinds of moves.
Yep. And I think it's smart for him, too, to be able to have some maneuverability, some space, to be able to do some things and not be like, oh, man, I got to get a guy off the roster to bring somebody in. But in terms of, like, the cap space and stuff like that, the Giants are last, if I'm not mistaken. Right now,
according to the NFLPA numbers that are out there now, they've got basically nickels and dimes. It's really
Giants kind of need for this to happen. I don't know what's gonna happen.
Economically, it would help. It would be beneficial.
I understand for the Giants, and they can do some things. And like I said, Joe Shane over the last few years, I think Isaiah Hodgins, that signing in 2022 was absolutely incredible. But I'm saying allowing him to be able to do the trade, to do free agency, whatever it is, to be in giving it a little bit more cap room because the Giants are last. They need a little bit more space.
Joseph,
that would be good for them.
Does that answer your question?
It does. That was eloquently spoken. I love the points. It was just fantastic to hear you guys talk about it. I do have one very quick question for Mr. Casillas, if I may. As a former player, we saw Coach Dable win Coach of the Year, being his fiery self. It took a step back. There was a lot of different things that had to go wrong for that to have happened. And now we see kind of a different coach. He slimmed down. He seems like kind of like easier to talk to and like easier to answer questions in the press conferences so far. Do you as a ex-player, do you guys react differently to when the coach kind of changes his personality? And do you think that would be beneficial to everyone?
Well, I mean, you got to think 2 years ago, he was a rookie head coach and had a lot of success as a rookie head coach, right? And then the second year, it was kind of like a reality check. It was like, at the end of the day, there's a lot of luck that comes into winning games, the ball bouncing certain ways, but the good teams at the end of the year have a lot better luck than the bad teams, right? We all see that happening. And the Giants, they had a year of success, and then they also had a year of turmoil last year. Last year was turmoil from the beginning of the year, from the first game of the season losing at home to the Cowboys, losing one of the best offensive players in Andrew Thomas early in that game. It was turmoil very early, and stuff got rocky early, in the season. So it was an up and down season, but a lot of downs that happened last year, right? Think about players or think about a professional sometimes you have a great start to your career, and then that second year, things don't go right. So now your third year, you're trying to look back at the 2 years that you just had, your first 2 years, and you're trying to learn, and what could I do better this year that I didn't do well last year, and I did do well in the year prior. He's still learning. He's only a third year head coach, just like a third year player. Like, I don't care what you were doing before that. You're in the big leagues at that position. He's still young as a head coach. So I think the only thing constant in life is change. Hopefully he's doing the right changes necessary for the culture and what he's establishing here, so that can help him be more identifiable to the players and lead this locker room. He's trying to do what's best for his team, but as a third-year guy, my third year, I didn't have it figured it out. Paul, when you're third year doing this, did you have it all figured out?
Not at all.
So he's still figuring it out. You know what I mean? And I think that's a good thing. He's still trying to figure out who he is to the team and what he means to the team and what bringing this type of personality means to the locker room. He's still trying to figure it out, and give him some grace here.
Thank you, Joseph. Call
Thank
again.
you, guys. I appreciate it.
Appreciate the phone call, 201-939-4513. You've only got like 8 minutes left. Pearson, I'm not going to go through the list.
We could do it real quick.
We'll do
do it quick.
Do it quick.
All right,
we could do it quick. So I'm going to go from the worst to first, or first to worst?
We should have saved this for another show.
What do you think?
Killed another show.
What do you think, Pearson? I got it here.
I say go for it.
Go for it.
Go.
Just kind of fast it. So am I doing worst to first or first to worst?
Go.
Worst to first?
Go worst to first.
Okay, worst to first. All right.
Yeah.
So my number 10, I'm not going to call it worst to first. That sounds bad when I say it like that. So the number 10 position group, I'm going to go tight end, right? Darren Waller not being around, a Bellinger who I think has very good talent and can be very good in the NFL, and then the unproven young guy in Johnson, and then a whole bunch of guys that are kind of like, guys that are going to play for the Giants, but they're not like, top tier type of guy. So I got tight end as my number 10th ranked group. My number 9th ranked group is the offensive line. And I think the offensive line took a step back last year. I think Andrew Thomas going down, like we said early in the year, had something to do with that. And this goes off of what I think they're going to be this year, but it also have to keep in mind what I seen last year and what I seen years prior.
I'd reverse those two.
You reverse those two?
I got O-line as 10 and tight end.
You see that?
9.
Look, I did it. I'm
see
trying to play with it.
I
but
see it.
I'm like, Andrew Thomas is one of the better players in the league, so I couldn't keep them at number 10.
But we both agree that those two position groups are the bottom two.
Right.
I agree.
So then I go safety. And these safeties, Pinnock and Belton, the guys I have right now, they're at the top of the depth chart. We don't know who's going to be the actual starters, but those guys are ball-hawking guys who, whenever they play, they can create havoc with that when that ball goes in the air, and they can get to that ball. Tyler Nubin is a young guy, and also you got the Green Goblin Mills who rotate into that group. I like the potential of this safety group. I think they have a lot of potential. I have to see more tackling consistency from Pinnock. I think he's a great player when that ball's in the air. I think he knows what to do when that ball's in the air. And I think this group has a lot of potential, especially with that number 47 pick with Tyler Nubin from Minnesota. I like it. Number 7, I got corner. I got Banks, of course, Flott, McLeod. Do we have an established do we have our top 3 corners quite yet? Then we got number 1, right? Banks.
Yeah.
Who do we have as number 2 and 3? That's my question. Is it Flott? Is it McLeod?
A lot of competition.
Holmes there. You got Hawkins there, the rookie last year. We'll see. We'll see who emerges. Maybe the Giants sign a free agent to play corner. We'll see. But I like Banks. I think he had a great year. And I love anytime I see Flott. I think he's – remember Deontay Dion? Remember him for my years when he played?
The Bacon.
He came from Boise State.
Yep. I called him
That
the Bacon
kid-
because he wore the Halloween costume of the Bacon, when they as a rookie when he went to the hospital.
Yes, I remember that.
Remember?
Yeah,
He was the Bacon.
That kid was 160 pounds.
He could play. It's just a shame that he was given such a small frame because he could play.
He won a Super Bowl with the Rams,
yes,
playing with alongside the Ramsey.
One of my all-time favorite dark horse
kid
players.
Can play.
Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking about Flott. The kid can play.
Absolutely,
he can play. He's just little. He's just really small. And the durability always comes up as a question when you're that small, tackling guys that outweigh you about 40 pounds. Okay, so throw that in there. Number 6, I have the running back group. So I think Singletary, I think he's a really good player in the NFL, a consistent player in the NFL. I think that means something here in the league. Got to figure out who RB2 is. Got Tracy, you got Gray. Why are you laughing?
Because our bottom 4 are exactly the same.
That's funny.
We just have them in a different order.
Yeah, switch
I got
up.
the corners at 7, I got the running backs at 8, and I got the safeties at 6.
That's
so
funny.
our bottom 4 are the same, just a little mixed.
Okay, I like it.
Go ahead.
All right. Number 5, quarterback. Of course, you got Daniel Jones, you got DeVito, you got Drew Lock.
Mm-hmm.
If Daniel Jones can show us what he showed us in 2022, you can move this group up a couple spaces, but not too many.
Okay.
DeVito showed us enough last year to show that he could be a backup in this league. That's what he showed us last year.
Mm-hmm.
And Drew Lock, he's a backup right now. But Daniel, it's all on Daniel Jones. If he can play and if he can play well, it's all on him. Number 4, the wide receiver room. I think we have a talented wide receiver in Neighbors. I think we have a underrated player in Wan'Dale Robinson who, whenever he steps on the field, looks incredible, especially late last year when he was a little bit away from his injuries. I think the kid has big play potential. He can move around. Of course, Neighbors has that potential. That's why he got drafted number 6 overall. Hyatt is the deep threat that the Giants could use to take off the top of any coverage. I want to see what Allen Robinson looks like, and the receiver room is deep.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, I think they overhauled the receiver room. You still got Isaiah Hodgins there, who had a great campaign in 2022 when he came. There's potential in this room. If Neighbors can emerge to be the guy that we think he is, I think that's a good spot for this room, the number 4, because this is a potential type of spot, right? Top 3, number 3 overall, and of course the last 3, if y'all haven't been paying attention, they're all defense. Number 3, I go linebacker. Inside, I guess middle linebacker, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got Bobby Okereke, who I think is one of the better middle linebackers in the entire league. A great leader, sideline to sideline tackler. The combination of him and McFadden last year created a lot of turnovers between those two guys.
Mm-hmm.
Tips, forced fumbles, fumble recoveries, and that is very good when you talk about impacting the ball and impacting the offense on every defensive series. And then also you throw Isaiah Simmons in that mix as well, who's a tremendous athlete, playing middle, outside, whatever the case is. The number 2 spot position ranking for the New York Giants is defensive tackle. I think you have the best defensive tackle in the league in Dexter Lawrence.
Okay.
But then I think there's a drop-off. I think you got big, sexy Dexy, who, if you ask any offensive lineman in the NFL, I think 8 times out of 10, they'll say Dexter Lawrence is the best nose guard in the NFL.
At least 6 out of 10, I'll tell you that.
There's definitely going to be a lot of guys.
There's going to be a lot.
For sure. And then, I like Nacho, Davidson, Jordan Phillips. They brought him in. It's good guys, but it's led by Dexter Lawrence.
Yes.
If you watch him on film, you will understand that he's one of the best players in the entire league, regardless of position. Okay. Number 1, pretty sure you have this too. Maybe, I don't know, is the edge.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing in Spider-Man, paying him the money, rightfully so. You pay those type of guys that type of money. And then Thibodeau having in 3rd year, right? His 3rd year, coming into his 3rd year campaign. Very, I don't know. People talk so much about him, about Thibodeau. He had first 2 years was very solid. He played a lot of snaps last year. I think like 90% of the snaps.
I think he's better than solid. I think he's really good.
I mean, he had 12 sacks on the year at the end of the year.
Had double digits.
He had double-digit sacks, and people wasn't giving him, credit or whatever the case is.
Well, because he did wear down and down the stretch.
But when you play 90% of the snaps,
exactly,
that happens to you, and your defense is out there all the time.
And that may be to the caller earlier today when he talked about Ojulari. If you can get Ojulari to give Tibbs some relief. that might help both players.
Thibodeau shouldn't play 90% of the snaps.
That's why I'm thinking.
I don't even want Burns to play that much. Right?
80? Are you okay with 80 for each?
I don't want Burns to play that much. Maybe Burns a little more than Thibodeau, but I want Ojulari number to be around like 20, 30%.
Okay.
Give those guys a spell. With those three guys, you're talking about production at the pack. Because Thibodeau numbers, he didn't have great like statistical numbers in turn, but he played 90% of the snaps at defensive end. That doesn't really happen, at that position. Everybody gets rotated out among the defensive line. Yep. I think adding Burns will help Thibodeau and Ojulari and ultimately help the whole defense. So that's my rankings.
Tamon Fox is the fourth, by the way.
Okay.
I would think at this point, and I kind of like him.
I like him too. He showed a lot of promise last year.
Well, the year before, even more so, right? Anyway, I went O-line 10, tight end 9, running back 8, cornerback 7, safety 6, quarterback 5, defensive tackle was number 4 for me.
Okay.
Number 3 was linebacker. I happen to be very high
on the wide receivers.
On not only Okereke, but McFadden.
Yes.
And I include Isaiah Simmons as a linebacker. So that, to me, I love that 3.
I like it too.
And I am also a big Darian Beavers fan, and I think he is going to bounce back after being basically a redshirt last year. So I love those 4 guys at linebacker. So I've got them at 3, wide receiver at 2.
Wow.
And the reason I'm that high, I got a really, really good feeling about that room. The depth, what I'm seeing, the competition on the back end of that depth chart is so good. And I'm banking on Neighbors being right out of the box. Sweet.
See, but the
if
only,
that's not true,
no,
then
the
wide
only
receivers have to
reason
be
I
down
couldn't put them higher is because of the quarterback.
That's fine.
The wide receiver.
Edge rusher number 1.
Right. Wide receivers can't do well if the quarterbacks don't do well.
You're absolutely right.
So for me, it was too much dependent on another position.
And that's perfectly
You know what I mean? That's why I had them at 4.
I didn't really dissect this
I just got this right before.
You spent more time on it than I did. I just really like the mixture of guys in that wide receiver room right now. And if they all play to their abilities and they're not hurt,
it could be special.
I think it's a really good room. And it's
special.
a really deep room.
Yep. And young.
I mean, even Allen Robinson, if he makes this 53, I was fooled by Paris Campbell last year.
Yeah.
We thought Paris Campbell was going to be an important part of that room last year. It turned out he was invisible. So who knows? But we throw it out there for you anyway. All right, jot the number down, folks. Again, we're here every weekday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time for 1 hour. Big Blue Kickoff Live, 201-939-4513. Hashtag Giants Chat. Remember, you can always get an archive of this program at giants.com/podcast and your favorite podcast platforms everywhere, as well as the Giants mobile app. For Jonathan Casillas, I'm Paul Dottino. You've been watching Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. We'll see you next time.
Zyn nicotine pouches deliver nicotine satisfaction anywhere, anytime, which means Zyn pairs well with you, your personality, your schedule, and your spontaneity. Zyn fits easily into your bag, pocket, and into your life because it's smoke-free, hands-free, and hassle-free. So the only person who will know you have a Zyn pouch in is you. Visit Zyn.com or head to your local convenience store today to find your Zyn. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
What's up, y'all? Janice Torres here.
And I'm Austin Hankwitz.
We're the hosts of Mind the Business, Small Business Success Stories, a podcast presented by iHeartRadio's Ruby Studios and Intuit QuickBooks. Join us as we speak with small business owners about the tools they use to turn their ideas into success.
From finding that initial spark of entrepreneurship to organizing payments and invoices, we've got you covered. So follow and listen to Mind the Business, Small Business Success Stories on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.